Assalomu alaykum aziz yurtdoshlar, assalomu alaykum qadrdonlar, assalomu alaykum. Bizni tinglab turgan hammaga Oriyat donoda Jarayon dasturi boshlandi. Demak, bugungi sana 26-iyun sanasi bilan bog'liq bo'lgan ma'lumotlar umumjahon giyohvandlikka qarshi kurash kuni munosabati bilan studiyamizda bir necha mehmonlarimiz tashrif buyurishgan. Aynan mana shu sana bilan bog'liq bo'lgan, elga yurtga nafi tegadigan bir mavzuni e'tiboringizga havola etmoqchimiz. Demak, mehmonimiz Ashita Mittal xonim Birlashgan Millatlar Tashkiloti giyohvand moddalar va jinoyatchilik bo'yicha boshqarmasining Markaziy Osiyodagi mintaqaviy vakili. Vakolatxona Toshkentda joylashgan va Markaziy Osiyo mamlakatlari Qozog'iston, Qirg'iziston, Tojikiston, Turkmaniston hamda O'zbekistonni qamrab oladi. Assalomu alaykum, xush kelibsiz.
Assalomu alaykum. Good evening. It's really a pleasure to be here today. Today is the International Day Against Drugs Abuse and Illicit Drug Trafficking. It's the World Drug Day.
Mittal xonimi yonlarida Baxtiyor aka Yoqubov tarjimonlik qilib bizga tushuntirib ko'mak beradilar. Baxtiyor aka.
Assalomu alaykum. Yaxshimisizlar? Mana hozir Mittal xonim aytganlaridek, bugun 26-iyun kuni umumjahon darajasida giyohvand moddalarga qarshi kurashish kuni va ularni oldini olish masalalariga bag'ishlangan alohida kun deb belgilangan.
Salomat bo'ling. Yana mehmonimiz borlar. Arifa Fatihova kommunikatsiya masalalari bo'yicha mutaxassis. Assalomu alaykum. Xush kelibsiz. Endi Baxtiyor aka savol bilan murojaat qilamiz Mittal xonimga. Nima uchun bugungi sana 26-iyun nima bilan bog'liq bu? Biron bir sana tarixiy bormi?
First question regarding the 26th of June. Why is it specifically this day that has been announced as a day?
In December 1987, the General Assembly decided to declare 26th of June as the International Day Against Drug Use and Illicit Drug Trafficking. This is essentially to mark the global struggle against drug use, drug trafficking, drug production, and it's a day to basically recommit ourselves to make sure that we have a world that is being able to address, based on science and evidence, the issues of drug trafficking, drug production, and also drug use.
Aynan mana shu sanani shu mavzuga bag'ishlab o'tkazilishini belgilagan qarorlardan bu 1987-yil dekabr oyida Birlashgan Millatlar Tashkilotining Bosh Assambleyasi tomonidan qabul etilgan rezolyutsiya bo'lib xizmat qiladi. Ya'ni u yerda butun dunyo bo'yicha giyohvand moddalarni iste'mol qilinishi, uni noqonuniy aylanishi va uni ishlab chiqarilishini tartibga solish, ya'ni unga qarshi kurashish masalalari bo'yicha, demak, dunyoni yanada bu xavfdan himoya qilish va shu yo'nalishda ishlab chiqarish, oldin uni demak noqonuniy harakatlanishi va suiiste'molini oldini olishga qaratilgan tashabbuslarni birlashtirgan holatda mana shu qaror qabul qilingan.
And this is also to say that this is a shared responsibility to make sure that we foster good health, have resilient communities, and we believe that the drug problem is not an issue of one individual. It is a shared responsibility between the governments, the communities, and all of us to make sure that we also create an environment in which our young people especially are free and from drug use issues. And it is also a day when we have to really honor the fact that those who have worked on these issues, they need to be saluted. And also we have to make sure that we have an environment in which people can make informed choices and decisions on drug-seeking behaviors, make sure they have access to treatment. And this year we have a special theme for the World Drug Day. It's called People First. Stop stigma and discrimination and strengthen prevention, because we believe an ounce of prevention, dollar spent on that can also prevent us from spending $10 in future.
Demak, haqiqatan ham bu kunning bunday aynan mana shu mavzuga qaratilishi birinchi navbatda biz e'tibor qaratishimiz kerak bo'lgan jihatlarni o'zi mujassam qiladi. Ya'ni bu yerda sog'liqni saqlash, bu yerda huquq muhofaza qilish organlari bilan birgalikda nafaqat bitta tashkilot, bitta idora, balki bir qancha mana shu masalaga befarq bo'lmagan mutasaddi tashkilotlar, insonlar, alohida kishilar, hammamizni bir yoqadan bosh chiqazib mana shu giyohvand moddalarni ishlab chiqarishi, uni iste'mol qilinishiga, suiiste'mol qilinishiga qarshi kurashishga bizni bu kunda kuchlarimiz birlashtiriladi. Ya'ni shu sababdan ham aynan shu ramziy ma'noda shu kunni belgilangan. Ya'ni bu shunday holatki, bunda biz bugungi mavzuda mana shu yilgi mavzusi bu mavzuning nomi yoki mana shu kunning mavzusining nomi insoniyat qadriyati birinchi o'rinda yoki inson birinchi o'rinda degan alohida bir nom bilan chiqdi. Ya'ni bunda o'sha kishilarga qarshi, ularga nisbatan stigmani yoki bo'lmasa kamsitilish, diskriminatsiyaga qarshi ularni to'xtatish va shu yo'nalishda barcha qilinayotgan xatti-harakatlar, sarf-xarajatlarni ham muvofiq tarzda olib borishni nazarda tutadi va taqozo qiladigan chora-tadbirlarni amalga oshiradi. Bugungi kunda mana shu yo'nalishga kiritiladigan $1 istiqbolda $10 bo'lib orqaga, ya'ni foyda bo'lib qaytadi jamiyatga, mamlakatga, insonlarga.
Aytayotganlari va sizni bizga tarjima qilgan hammasida o'sha inson omili, hurmat yuzasidan deb yozilgan joylari kishini bir boshqacha holatga olib kelar ekanda. Bu giyohvandlikka qarshi kurash, u bu deyapmiz, lekin o'sha stigma, kamsitishlar deyapmiz. Bu aholini oralarida ularni saqlab qolish boralari ketayotgan gapmi, Baxtiyor aka? Bu jamiyatda orasida bular ham o'zini o'rnini topib olishga va ular ham bunga muhtoj, hurmatga muhtoj, loyiq odamlar demoqchimizmi bu orqali?
Yeah, as I've heard what you have just said through the interpretation, of course, I realize that the people should come first. Always, their interests should be taken into our priority attention. So, from that perspective, we have to deal with stigma and the discrimination against those people who actually are more or less suffering from drug use and drug abuse. So, does it mean that we need to pay more attention to those who have been affected in terms of providing them with all the necessary care so that they improve their lifestyle?
Yeah. You know, I always give the comparison of our strategy like it's like a traffic light. We have to make sure that those who are not taking drugs, most people, we prevent them from taking drugs by having evidence-informed drug prevention strategies, especially young people, so they don't get initiated. Secondly is those people who get into drug use, it's our responsibility that we make sure that they come into treatment at the earliest possible. And those who are very severely affected by drug use, we need to look at sustained pharmacotherapies to even support them to look at a complete recovery and support them to the recovery process. So it is important that you see the World Drug Report 2023 was just released today. And according to that report, 296 million people around the world have used drugs at least once in the last 1 year. This is very important for us to note. And out of that, only 39 million people of them have also suffered from drug use problems, drug use disorders. So before this becomes a full-fledged disorder, it is important to identify and reach out to services. It is also very important that when we find somebody in the community who's taking a drug, instead of calling them with different weird names or stigmatizing them, we should try to help that person to come into treatment purposes. And yet, I believe, including from the media like yours, and from the mahallas, and from the young people, from the elderly people, I urge that we must have evidence-informed drug prevention strategies which help us to build better resilience, especially amongst young people.
Rahmat, Baxtiyor aka, hozir aytasiz, qisqa reklama o'tkazib o'rganimizdan keyin opani gaplarini bizga tushuntirib berasiz. Davom etamiz aziz do'stlar. Oriyat donoda Jarayon dasturi aynan bugungi sana bilan bog'liq bo'lgan umumjahon giyohvandlikka qarshi kurash munosabati bilan suhbat quryapmiz va hozir mana Mittal xonim aytib o'tgan fikrlarini Baxtiyor akamiz tarjima orqali bizga tushuntirib beradilar.
Demak, albatta bu savolingiz juda ham o'rinli. Men bu holatni demak aytyaptilar, Shita Mittal xonim, bizda shunday bir strategiyaga o'xshataman. Ya'ni xuddi ko'chadagi svetofor strategiyasiga, ya'ni rang-barang ranglar bilan. Bilamiz, u yerdagi o'sha turli ranglar turli holatni anglatadigan bir ramziy ranglar. Ya'ni ma'lum holatga kelib, qiyin holatga tushib qolgan mana shu iste'mol nuqtai nazaridan insonlarni to'g'ri yo'lga chorlash, ularga kerakli bo'lgan barcha ko'maklarni berish, davolash bo'ladimi yoki ular o'z hayotlarida dalillarga asoslangan qarorlarni qabul qilishlariga ko'mak bo'ladimi? Ana o'shani tashqaridagi bu vaziyatdan boxabar bo'lib turgan insonlar berishi, ya'ni befarq bo'lmasligi timsolida ko'rishimiz mumkin. Ya'ni agarda biz mana shu insonga uni davolash nuqtai nazaridan, insoniylik nuqtai nazaridan yondashadigan bo'lsak, unga barcha kerakli shart-sharoitlar hozirgi kunda mavjud. O'sha davolash markazlari mavjud va bu yo'nalishda biz farmaka nazorat tizimlari bor, ya'ni dori-darmonlar bilan davolash tizimlarini barqaror tarzda ta'minlashimiz. Bularning hammasi ana shu insonlarni qayta sog'liqlarini tiklash jarayonlarini ijobiy tarzda qo'llab-quvvatlashga xizmat qiladigan xizmatlar, ya'ni markazlar hisoblanadi. 2023-yilda mana shu yaqindagina chop etilgan o'sha xalqaro hisobotida ma'lum bo'lishicha, bugungi kunda 1 yil davomida giyohvand moddalarni ilk bor iste'mol qilib ko'rgan, sinab ko'rgan aholi 296 millionni tashkil etar ekan. Va o'shalardan 39 millioni bugungi kunda afsuski, demak mana shu iste'mol tufayli o'zlarida ma'lum bir sog'liqlarining buzilishiga yetib, ya'ni shu sabab bo'lganlar. Mana shularni biz oldini olishimiz kerakki, o'sha holatga yetib qolmasin ular. Va shu yo'nalishda biz ularni masalan agarda payqagan holatimiz bo'lsa, ularga nisbatan odamiylik munosabati bilan, "Ey do'stim, kel, men senga yordam berishim kerak yoki mana shunaqa joylardan xabarim bor, borgin" degan ma'noda ularga iliq so'zlar bilan munosabat qilib, ularni g'alati, noodatiy, ularni haqoratlaydigan nomlar bilan murojaat qilmasdan, balki ularni mana shu sizni idorangiz, mana shu sizni kanalingiz orqali yoki bo'lmasa kerakli barcha mahalla yoki bo'lmasa odamlarni jalb qilgan holatda ularga ma'lumotlarni yetkazish, ularni xabardorligini oshirish va mavjud imkoniyatlar haqida, ularga davolanish imkoniyatlari haqida aytib, ularni mana shu yo'ldan qaytarish va shifo berish imkoniyatlari bor.
Bugungi kunda bu yaxshi tomonga o'zgarishlar sezilyaptimi? Mittal xonimdan so'rasangiz, mana shu hozir so'zingizdan keyin ularga bir hurmat nazari bilan qarash, ularni bir boshqacha qaramasdan, u ham bir jamiyatning vakili deb qarash va ularni hozir hayotga, sog'lom hayotga qaytarishlarimiz qay darajada bugungi kunda davom etyapti? Shu haqida bilmoqchi edim va keyingi savol bo'ladi, bu Qozog'iston, Qirg'iziston, Tojikiston, Turkmaniston va biz, ularning oralaridagi tafovut qaysi birimizda ko'proq bu raqamlar, afsuski deb gapiradigan bo'lsak yoki tuzalishlar bo'lsa, qaysi biri bizga to'g'ri keladi? Markaziy Osiyo bo'yicha gapiradigan bo'lsak, qaysi qo'shni davlatlar biz qanday raqamlar bilan murojaat qilishimiz mumkin?
So thank you so much. Just to follow up what you have just explained regarding this, specific treatment to those people who are already suffering from drug use. So we do understand that the human dignity is the priority, that we should be treating them in a humane manner, right? A humanity-based manner. So that they should be treated as important parts of the society, that they still can be recovered and restored back to the society. From this perspective, what is the current situation? Is the situation improving in our country? What are there in specific recovery mechanisms or methodologies that your institutions in particular is leading? And the second question would be, what can you say about the situation in the whole Central Asian region comparing Uzbekistan with other neighboring countries like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan? So what is the current situation?
The drug problem is a complex problem. There are countries in which there's production, cultivation of narcotics. We have it in the neighborhood. There's production of synthetic drugs. There's also the production of new psychoactive substances. And this market is changing on a regular basis. So what is the biggest vulnerability of the Central Asian countries? It is the geographical location. It is located in one of the largest poppy growing areas. But today Afghanistan is not only producing opium and heroin, it is also a center for production of methamphetamines. But not only in our neighborhood, we find that even in the region there is also laboratories that are coming out with synthetic drugs. And these are not only sold on the street, but they're also sold on the internet, what we call the dark nets. So to answer your question, I can't say increasing or decreasing significantly because this is a very volatile market. It changes regularly. Last year in 2022, Uzbekistan increased its drug seizures by 19.8%. In the case of Tajikistan, more than 4 tons of drugs were seized. And actually, if you look at Kazakhstan, when I was talking of the dark nets and the potential synthetics that are sold in the case of Kazakhstan, there was a 161% increase in the synthetic drugs that were being sort of present, especially through the dark nets in particular, on online networks. And in the case of Kyrgyzstan also, there was 11-fold increase in the reaching of up to 231 kilograms of these synthetic drugs. So this is becoming a big problem also for the region. So it's not only opium, cannabis or heroin that we're talking about today. There are new drugs that are coming into the market. So we have to be alert and always make sure that we strengthen the capacities of drug law enforcement officers to identify at the earliest possible. Because of the transnational nature, we are also encouraging all of the 5 Central Asian countries to collaborate and with each other and rather look at cross-border cooperation with each other. So we're working a lot on strengthening the law enforcement dimensions by establishing border liaison offices, looking at the cargo units that go across, like establishing port control units on the trade and transit corridors. We also have established air cargo control units. And in the case of Uzbekistan, a very interesting phenomena is that we have in all the regions established interagency mobile teams that bring together ministries of internal affairs and state security service. Also, you have the general prosecutor's offices and customs coming together to work together. So that's a law enforcement dimension. Now, for drug treatment, we work in all of the countries, including in Uzbekistan, in improving the quality and access to treatment services for drug-using populations, and we have good programs on ground. We have strong families programs for drug prevention, which is across the region, and most importantly, we have established a regional network, a youth network, young people who not only become recipients of information, but they are also becoming basically partners as change makers and champions of change. So we believe that we have a robust program. Challenges are immense because the market continues to change, but we have to be careful so young people don't fall prey to drug use, and those who do get to the treatment center. So it's a good balanced strategy that we're adopting here in this region.
Demak, bu masala juda ham murakkab masala aslida. Bu narsaga bir og'iz bilan agarda javob berish imkoni bo'lganida ajoyib ish bo'lgan bo'lar edi. Ya'ni bu narsaga biz yondashgan ekanmiz. Juda ham bir necha burchaklarga, qirralarga e'tibor qaratishimiz kerak. Xususan biz bilamizki, hozirgi kunda giyohvand moddalar yetishtiruvchi mamlakatlar bor. Bu mamlakatlarda yetishtirilgan giyohvand moddalar asosan shu qo'shni mamlakatlar misolini oladigan bo'lsak, ma'lum mamlakatlarda, mintaqa misolida mamlakat hududidan kesib boshqa iste'mol mamlakatlarga o'tadi. Ya'ni bugungi kunda nafaqat biz o'rganib qolgan odatiy tabiiy tarzda yetishtiriladigan giyohvand moddalar, balki sintetik giyohvand moddalarning ham va yangi demak moddalarning paydo bo'lishi afsuski bugungi kunda bizga juda ham jiddiy qiyinchilik va murakkabchilik tug'dirmoqda. Geografik nuqtai nazardan Markaziy Osiyo hududi, xususan O'zbekiston juda ham bir shunday joyda joylashganki, unda yon qo'shnisi bo'lmish Afg'oniston nafaqat o'sha afyun yoki bo'lmasa geroin yetishtirish, balki bugungi kunda afsuski ularda metamfetamin moddalarini ham yetishtirish ancha jadallashganligi oxirgi olib borayotgan tadqiqotlarda o'z demak qasam topmoqda isbotini. Va bugungi kunda afsuski mana shu sintetik giyohvand moddalarni yetishtiruvchi noqonuniy laboratoriyalar ham faoliyatini olib bormoqda va ular nafaqat o'sha ruxsat berilmagan noqonuniy bozorlarda, jismoniy bozorlarda, balki afsuski internet orqali, ya'ni darknet deb nomlanadigan o'sha internet tarmoqlaridan ham juda ham ko'p o'zini mana shu mahsulotlarni sotishda ancha ilgari ilgarilaganligi kuzatilmoqda. Demak, raqamlarga to'xtaladigan bo'lsak, O'zbekiston demak o'sha so'nggi mana shu 22-yil oxiri 23-yil boshidagi ma'lumotlarga ko'ra O'zbekistonda bugungi kunda 19.8% demak giyohvand moddalarni konfiskatsiya qilish, ya'ni ushlash va ularni musodara qilish darajasi 19.8% ga yetgan. Tojikistonda 4 tonnagacha mana hozir bu giyohvand moddalarni aniqlangan, ushlanganligi. Qozog'istonda afsus bilan aytishimiz kerak, bugungi kunda xususan darknet orqali sotiladigan mana shu sintetik giyohvand moddalarning miqdori 161% ga oshgan. Bu juda ham katta ko'rsatkich. Qirg'izistonda ham demak afsuski mana shu giyohvand moddalarning iste'moli 11 marotaba oshganligi ko'rinib turibdi. 231 kilogrammgacha mana o'sha yaqindagi bo'lingan musodaralar bunga isbot bo'la oladi. Ya'ni aytmoqchimizki, odatiy bo'lgan o'sha afyun, qora dori yoki bo'lmasa biz uni o'sha nasha deb aytamiz yoki bo'lmasa geroinlar, balki o'sha sintetik moddalar bugungi kunda bizga juda ham jiddiy muammo tug'dirmoqda. Shu munosabat bilan biz bu yo'nalishga qarshi kurashuvchi mutasaddi organlarni, ya'ni o'sha huquq muhofaza qilish organlarining salohiyatini oshirish yo'lida ham bir qancha tashabbuslarni ilgari surganmiz, loyihalar bor, ular bilan hamkorlikda ish olib boramiz. Markaziy Osiyo mamlakatlari bilan chegaraviy hamkorlik dasturlari bor. Bu yerda chegara qo'shinlari o'rtasida xabardorlik, ya'ni ma'lumotlarni yetkazish tizimi va loyihasi yo'lga qo'yilgan. Ya'ni bizda o'sha quruqlik transporti yo'li bo'yicha yuradigan gruzovo, ya'ni kargo yo'nalishi bo'yicha portlarni kontrol qiladi, nazorat qiladigan punktlarimiz bor. Havo kema orqali, samolyotlar orqali keladigan yuklarni ham nazorat qilish bo'limlari bor va bizda hozirgi kunda idoralararo mobil guruhlar tuzilgan. Bu bevosita hozir Ichki ishlar vazirligi, Bosh prokuratura, bojxona xodimlari va milliy xavfsizlik demak davlat xizmati bilan birgalikda bu ishchi guruh bevosita qiladigan ishlari hamkorlikda ish olib borib, huquq muhofaza qilish nuqtai nazaridan bu masalaga yechim axtaradi. Endi sog'liqni saqlash nuqtai nazaridan qaraydigan bo'lsak, bugungi kunda davolanish uchun hozir ancha-muncha imkoniyatlar eshiklari keng ochib berilgan. Bizda xususan universitet tashkilotida bu yo'nalishda sog'liqni saqlash tizimi yo'nalishidagi bir qancha dasturlarimiz bor. Mustahkam oilalar degan dasturimiz bor. Yoshlar tarmog'i deb nomlanadigan bir platformamiz, maydonchamiz bor. Unda yoshlar, yosh aholi, yosh yigit va qizlar nafaqat biz mana shu giyohvand moddalarning inson salomatligiga zarari haqidagi ma'lumotlarni oddiy qabul qiluvchilar emas, balki mana shu muammoga qarshi kurashuvchi va bu yo'nalishda ijobiy o'zgarishlarni amalga oshiruvchi agentlar sifatida ishtirok etmoqdalar. Ya'ni ular ana shu yo'nalishda mutasaddi bo'lyaptilar. Ya'ni aytmoqchimizki, bu masalaga biz juda ham ehtiyotkorona munosabatda bo'lishimiz, yoshlarimizni bu iskanjaga tashlab qo'ymasligimiz kerak va shu munosabat bilan biz qo'llaydigan strategiyalarimiz balansda bo'lishi kerak. Ya'ni bir muvozanatli yondashuvlarni qo'llashimiz kerak bo'ladi.
Rahmat, hozir davom etamiz. Soatlar bongi bizda 18:30. Oriyat donoda jarayon dasturi davom etyapti aziz do'stlar. Aynan bugungi sana bilan 26-iyun umumjahon giyohvandlikka qarshi kurash kuni munosabati bilan bir necha mehmonlarimizni radioga taklif etganmiz. YouTube kanali orqali video mavjud. ITV platformasi orqali ham Oynayjahon televideniya ham ko'rsangiz bo'ladi. Mehmonimiz Ashita Mittal xonim Birlashgan Millatlar Tashkilotining giyohvand moddalar va jinoyatchilik bo'yicha boshqarmasining Markaziy Osiyodagi mintaqaviy vakili. Yonlarida Baxtiyor aka Yoqubov tarjimon bo'lib bizga yordam beryaptilar hamda Arifa Fatihova kommunikatsiya masalalari bo'yicha mutaxassis bugun Oriyat donodalar. Aynan bizni qiziqtirgan savollar, raqamlar, mana hozir qo'shni davlatlar bilan bo'lgan muloqotlar haqlarida ham gapirib o'tyapmiz. Bu bojxona bilan bo'ladimi, davlat xavfsizlik xizmati bilan bo'ladimi, quruqlikda, suvda, havoda qayerdagi olib kirish mumkin bo'lganini oldini olishlar haqlarida hozir gap ketdi. Bularning qatorlarida endi sihatlik, salomatlik boralarida qanchalik kishilarimiz bu opamizga murojaat qilishyapti bu tashkilotga yoki ular xijolat bo'lib ayta olmayotganlar bor oramizda Baxtiyor aka. Oilalar xijolat bo'lamiz. Hozir aytib o'tdi stigma bilan kamsitishlar deyapmiz. Aynan Mittal xonim aytganlaridek mahalla kesimlarida ham biz bir-birimizga qo'shni turamiz. Bir mahalla 7 qo'shni bir-biriga yaqin, ota-ona degan gaplarimiz ko'p maqollarimizda. Qanchalik bu o'zini ifodasini topyapti? Xijolatvorlikdan nari qilib olib chiqib ketishimiz kerak u oilani yoki bir-birini ko'rganda boshqa qilganda ana bemor bu, kasal degan gaplar bor. Shuni qanday qilib anonim bo'ladimi, kishi bilmas bo'ladimi, murojaat qilishlari qanday tarzda bugungi kunda yoki bu tashkilotga hozir murojaat qilmoqchi bo'lganlar bo'lsa qanday qilib opa bilan bog'lanishlari mumkin? Oramizda tinglayotganlar orasida shundaylar ham bo'lishi mumkin-ku.
So thank you so much. You have talked a lot about interesting. You provided very interesting information about the existing interventions, about the initiatives regarding this board points, air control units, and the interagency mobile teams and other very important law enforcement related activities, in particular in the area of the providing of health services and treatment opportunities for those who are affected. So this is very important and very valuable information. So to follow up this, I would like to request, ask you to provide some information about the accessibility of your interventions or services to those who are affected, because you have spoken about the stigma, discrimination, so we have to be very careful while treating these people or talking to them. We have to be picking the proper terms, right, not to abuse them or not to disappoint them, and then we have to keep them wanting, coming and asking for help, for an assistance. So we have to be, very much careful in using these words like druggie or junkies and other things. And this is one side. And if among our listeners are those people who already have probably suffered from that or who are in the process of treatment or want to have someone to help them, what would be your kind of support in that regard? Can they directly come to UNODC office, for instance?
Let me say that the access to treatment for drug users is a very big priority, not only in Uzbekistan but the world over. Only 1 in 10 people generally end up coming to treatment centers, and often they take 4 to 5 years before they even reach for the first help. So the stigma and discrimination issues become very important, and our mahallas and our communities have to create an enabling environment. It's also true that the law enforcement agencies, instead of putting them in prisons, they should try to find these people into treatment centers. The government of Uzbekistan has established a number of narcology centers across the country. But in addition to that, there are also what we call the trust points for HIV prevention, where a large number of injecting drug users can also seek treatment for prevention of HIV, especially injecting drug users, and for hepatitis C and tuberculosis also. So I believe that the health clinics are well established, and they should be able to look at early interventions for, and what UNODC is doing is training up the health practitioners on what we call the global best standards, which is scientific and evidence-informed to get better results out of the drug treatment. So I would encourage those who need help to seek help of the civil society partners, the NGOs that exist, and also the narcology centers, and those who are into injecting to look at also the trust points that have been established for prevention of HIV amongst them. On prevention side, let me tell you that we have reached out through our family skills program with the help of Ministry of Public Education, to thousands and thousands of homes and families to look at early intervention, to identify the signs of addiction. Also to train families on looking at how to communicate with their children and between themselves to create an enabling environment for children to take informed decisions. So it's a cross between prevention and treatment, and keeping a person out of relapse is a big struggle, and we must understand the nature of drug use is it's a chronically relapsing disorder, but it doesn't mean with every failure you can actually look at a step towards success. So that's why it's important that we walk through the journey, and we need a whole of society approach to do that.
Bu yo'nalishda haqiqatan ham bugungi kunda demak bir qancha sog'liqni saqlash yo'nalishidagi markazlar mavjud. Bu O'zbekistondan faqat, ya'ni bu yo'nalishda salomatlik xizmatlarini taqdim etish nafaqat O'zbekiston uchun ustuvor vazifa yoki yo'nalish, balki butun dunyodagi bu eng ustuvor vazifa va yo'nalishlardan biri. Afsus bilan aytishimiz kerak, bugungi kunda murojaat qilgan, demak, umuman olganda mana shu holatga tushgan odamlarning 10 tadan bittasigina davolanishga murojaat qiladi. Va ular davolanish davomiyligi 4-5 yil davom etadigan bo'ladi, inobatga oladigan bo'lsak, hammasi ham mana shu davomida
oxirigacha
sobit tura olmaydi, oxirigacha tura olmaydi. Va haligi aytganingizdek, bu narsaga biz o'sha stigmani bartaraf etish, mahallalarni jalb etish, bu yerda o'sha kerakli barcha manfaatdor tomonlarni sa'y-harakatlarini birlashtirgan holatdagina bu holatni yaxshilashimiz mumkin. Va xususan haligi aytganimizdek, huquq muhofaza qilish organlarini ham bu yerda o'zlarining demak yondashuvlarini qisman o'zgartirishlari ham bu o'rinda ijobiy natijaga olib keladi. Ya'ni ularni darrov mahbus xonalarga emas, balki maxsus hozir narkologik markazlar bor. O'zbekistonda juda ham ko'p talaygina bu narkologik markazlar bor va alohida o'sha ishonch markazlari bor. Ya'ni xususan narkotik vositalardan igna orqali, shpris orqali foydalanuvchilar ko'pincha yondosh kasalliklarni paydo bo'lishiga sabab bo'ladi. Ya'ni bu OIV kasalligi, gepatit C kasalligi, sil kasalligi, tuberkulyoz, bularni ham davolash bugungi kunda ancha yaxshi yo'lga qo'yilgan. Mana shu markazlarga murojaat qilish orqali bu kasalliklarni ham davolashga arziydi va shu narsaga albatta intilish kerak. Endi shu yo'nalishda biz sog'liqni saqlash tizimi mutaxassislarining salohiyatini oshirish bo'yicha maxsus treninglar uyushtiramiz. Ularda bugungi kundagi dunyodagi eng ilg'or tajribalarni, dalillarga asoslangan tajribalar orqali ularga o'sha malaka va ko'nikmalarni shakllantirishda biz barcha o'sha qo'limizdan kelgan UNICEF tashkiloti mutasaddiligida dasturlarni, loyihalarni taqdim etamiz. Va bu nafaqat sog'liqni saqlash tizimi, balki bu yo'nalishda faol bo'lgan fuqaro jamiyati tashkilotlari ham bor, nodavlat, notijorat tashkilotlari ham bor. Ularga ham murojaat qilinsa, ular mana shu vaziyatni doimiy ravishda kuzatib boradilar va o'zlaridagi mavjud salohiyat, resurslar orqali ularga yordam beradilar. Bu narsa bugungi kunda ancha yaxshi o'zini demak yo'lga tushib olgan. Endi profilaktika yo'nalishi bo'yicha, oldini olish masalasi bo'yicha gapiradigan bo'lsak, biz ta'lim vazirligi bilan birgalikda oilalarda mustahkam ko'nikmalarni shakllantirish degan dasturlarimiz, ya'ni shu mavzudagi dasturlarimiz orqali minglab oilalarni qamrab oldik. Ularga qanday qilib o'z farzandlarini mana shu yo'lga kirib qolmasliklarini oldini olish, qanday qilib ulardagi farzandlaridagi yoshlardagi dastlabki belgi va alomatlarni, ya'ni shunga kirishib borayotganlari bo'lsa, payqash usullari va ular bilan qanday qilib munosabat qurish, ularni qanday qilib bu yo'ldan qaytarish usullari bo'yicha o'sha ularning ko'nikmalarini oshirish bo'yicha dasturlarimiz bugungi kunda olib borilmoqda. Albatta bu juda davolanish masalasi, bu juda ham uzoq muddatli jarayon. Bu yerda ehtiyot bo'ladigan joyi sriv degan narsa bor yoki bo'lmasa bemorlar, ya'ni o'sha davolanish davrida ular yana o'sha qaytib iste'molga o'tib qoladigan holatlar bor. Ana o'shaqa narsalarni oldini olishimiz kerak. Ya'ni mana shu katta qiyinchilik. Ya'ni biz bilamizki, bu narsa surunkali davom etadigan holat. Ya'ni agarda biz shuna davolanish jarayonida shu narsaga jiddiy diqqat e'tibor bilan qaramasak, davolanish muddati cho'zilib, uzayib boraveradi va ta'sir ostidagi mana shu holatdagi bemor holatidagi insonlarning davolanishi uzoqlashadi. Shu narsaga biz juda ham diqqat bilan barcha mavjud imkoniyatlarni safarbar qilgan holatda harakat qilishimiz kerak bo'ladi.
Endi bu nazoratga hammasi, Baxtiyor aka, nazoratda turish kerak. Bu hozirgi aytayotgan kishilarimiz, bemorlarimiz deymiz. Mana hozir o'zingiz aytib o'tyapsiz, bu endi davolanishi boshlab turib katta vaqt kerak deyapmiz. Buni chiqarib yuborish, u kasallikdan chiqarib yuborish va sog'lom hayotga qaytarish. Lekin siz aytganingizdek, o'rgangan ko'ngil o'rtansa qo'ymasligida mana yaxshi bo'ldim yoki qaytanga dori darmondan yomon bo'lyapman, yana o'zim o'shani boshlab qo'ysam degan paytlar bor va bir necha odamlar hayotdan ko'z yumib ketganlarini ko'ryapmiz. O'sha oshirib yuborish, ko'payib ketish, boshqa mana hozir ketma-ket yondosh kasalliklarni kelib chiqishini ham aytyapmiz. Men bir narsani so'ramoqchi edim Mittal xonimdan. Bu Markaziy Osiyo mintaqasi bo'yicha olib qaraydigan bo'lsak, g'arb mamlakatlarini bilamizda, ijtimoiy tarmoqlarda ayollar ham mukkasidan ketib qolganligini. Markaziy Osiyoda bu holat qay darajada? Ayollar bor, gender tenglik deb yozgan joylarimiz bor ekan, genderlikda qanday kam?
Yeah, thank you so much. As we realize, a lot of attention should be paid to the supervision and the control over those who are affected and over those interventions that we are offering to them in the area of treatment and prevention. So yes, of course, it does take a longer time for them to, take the full treatment, and it's very important that they retain within the treatment schemes. And as you already mentioned, there are so many associated diseases and health conditions that occur, like HIV and the HPC and other diseases. So, and my next question would be about women affected, because we know because we hear from social media and watch the TV, and that we know that in the Western countries, women also fall under the influence of drug use and drug abuse. So what is the situation in Central Asia with regard to
Reklamdan keyin javob beradi, aytib qo'ying.
women? Yeah, after the advertisements.
Davom etamiz aziz do'stlar. Jarayon dasturi hozirgi bergan savolimizga javob olamiz. Marhamat.
You're absolutely right. Women also take drugs. Globally, we have noticed that while 1 in 3 women are drug users, only 1 in 5 end up being in treatment centers. But in the case of Central Asian countries, there are much fewer women who come into treatment centers, and there are much fewer treatment centers which are dedicated for women itself. 2 reasons. One is that women face dual stigma. First of all, being a woman, and that too being a drug-using person. And in case that person also commits crimes, she gets triply stigmatized, and it makes it much more difficult for women to come forward and seek treatment. So it is a fact that women do take drugs, maybe not to the extent that men do. Also, when it comes to accessing treatment, they're much more shy to come forward. They are so scared they may be put behind bars. When we even look at women traffickers, 97% of the people convicted for crimes, drug-related crimes, are men, and only 93% and only 7% are women. But it's not to say that women are not involved in either the industry, use, or they're as vulnerable. Now, what's also very challenging now is that there are new synthetic drugs that are coming up. There is also pharmaceutical substances that get abused. We know that depression is a number one illness all around the world, and mental health issues are also getting more and more prominent. So, therefore, we are advocating that we must look at access to treatment irrespective of gender, irrespective of age, irrespective of socioeconomic class. We need full access to treatment services and a package of services which are specific. Women have very specific issues around drug use, and they need specialized treatment facilities for women and also on prevention of HIV. So the gender dimension is very important for us to address. They also end up being facing a lot more violence as women drug users, including sexual violence. So I think we need to be prepared better to deal with special issues of women drug users, not only in Uzbekistan but across the region. The numbers may be smaller. The absence of evidence doesn't mean absence of the problem. It is just that maybe they don't come forward and they may be taking different kinds of drugs than what we see normally that you can find in treatment centers. So I would say let's work together and to engage. And also I want to tell one little tip for women in particular, especially when you go to the pharmacies, please make sure that you have a prescription. You go to the doctor and take the prescription. So don't try to treat your illness, whether it's depression or aches and pains, by just doing self-medication. It is for everybody, I would say. And this is very important part of the preventive efforts that we must also take, because you may inadvertently end up being dependent on some substances since we may not know the full consequences of what you're ingesting.
Rahmat, marhamat.
Juda ham o'rinli savol berdingiz. Bugungi kunda haqiqatan ham agarda biz g'arb mamlakatlarini oladigan bo'lsak, u yerda ayollarning ham iste'mol nuqtai nazaridan erkak kishilarga nisbatan solishtirgandagi ulushi ancha sezilarli, salmoqli. Ya'ni har 3 tadan bitta ayolda mana shu narsa kuzatiladigan bo'lsa, har 5 tasidan bittasigina davolash uchun murojaat qiladi. Va oxirgacha davolanish masalasi haligi aytganimizdek u yerda ham muammoga qolib kelmoqda. Albatta Markaziy Osiyo mintaqasida xotin-qizlarning giyohvand iste'mol qilishi masalasi ham ma'lum darajada o'rganilmoqda. Albatta ko'rsatkichlar ancha kam, lekin yo'q degani emas. Bular bor. Lekin xotin-qizlarning giyohvand moddalar iste'moli, suiiste'moli yoki iste'moli tufayli tibbiyot, ular uchun alohida mo'ljallangan tibbiyot markazlari yoki alohida ayollar uchun mo'ljallangan xizmat tizimlari yo'lga qo'yilmagan umumiy tizim. Va shu sababdan ham bu yerda ikkita sabab bor. Ayollar odatda shu holatda ta'sirga tushgan bo'lsalar-da murojaat qilmaydilar. Birinchisi, ular ikki tomonlama stigmaga yuz tutadilar. Ya'ni avvalambor ular ayol kishi bo'lganliklari uchun, mana shu jamiyatning vakili bo'lganliklari uchun va shu bilan bir qatorda bu yerda agarda jinoiy bu narsaga tus beriladigan bo'lsa, u narsadan ham xavotir qilgan, qo'rqqan holatda ko'pincha ko'proq talofat chekadilar ular, ya'ni o'sha murojaat qilmasliklari sababidan. Haqiqatan ham bugungi kunda giyohvand moddalarning iste'moli emas, balki uni tashuviga ham aralashib qolganlarni agarda kesimida ko'radigan bo'lsak, aksariyat holatlar albatta erkaklarning ulushiga to'g'ri kelsa, 93% holatlarda jinoyatlar erkak kishilar tomonidan sodir etilsa, tabiiy ravishda 7% ayollar tomonidan amalga oshiriladi. Bu degani ular faqatgina masalan tashuvlarda emas, balki ishlab chiqarish tizimlarida yoki uni yetkazib berish zanjirlarida ham ishtirok etadilar degani. Lekin bugungi kunda haligi aytganimizdek sintetik giyohvand vositalarining ham paydo bo'lishi va yangi dori vositalarining, shu giyohvand vositalarining paydo bo'lishi sababidan nafaqat ularning iste'moli oqibatida paydo bo'ladigan jismoniy salomatlik muammolari, balki ruhiy kasallik holatlari ham afsuski yuzaga keladi. Bu narsani biz bee'tibor qoldira olmaymiz va shu sababdan ham hali aytib o'tilgandek gender masalasida biz tizimlar, ya'ni davolash tizimlari, profilaktika tizimlarida yosh, jins yoki bo'lmasa bu ayol, bu erkak degan farq tafovutni qilmasdan, balki ulardan farqli o'laroq hammasini imkoni boricha majmuaviy qilib yetkazib berishimiz kerakki, xotin-qizlarni keyinchalik mana shu sababidan boshqa zo'ravonlik turlariga ham duch kelib qolmasliklarini oldini olish uchun, ya'ni ularni xususan jinsiy zo'ravonlik, ya'ni dan himoya qilish uchun ham bu narsalar muhim. Va mana bugungi kundagi holatda qaraydigan bo'lsak, Markaziy Osiyo mintaqasida xotin-qizlarning giyohvand moddalar iste'moli bo'yicha dalillarning yetishmasligi bu muammoni yo'q degani emas. Ya'ni bu haqda sekin-sekin ma'lumotlar to'planib, ular haqida ham ishlar qilinmoqda. Ya'ni davolanish, profilaktika masalasi juda ham muhim masala. masala va bunga hammani jalb etish muhim. Bir tavsiya ham shu o'rinda nafaqat giyohvand moddalarini iste'moliga taalluqli, balki umumiy dori vositalaridan foydalanish bo'yicha. Aptekaga kirar ekansiz, dorixonaga albatta retsept bilan, shifokor yozib bergan ko'rsatma bilan kiringki, sizni holatingiz, jismoniy salomatlik holatingizga mos keladigan dorini ola biling. Ya'ni o'z boshimchalik bilan depressiya tushkunlik holati bo'ladimi yoki boshqa bir kasallik holatlari bo'ladimi, o'zini davolash bilan shug'ullanmaslik kerak inson. Shundagina biz mana shu ma'lum bir dorilarga bog'liq tobiy bo'lib qolishni oldini ham olgan bo'lamiz. Mana shu masalalarni albatta e'tibordan chetda qochirmasligimiz kerak.
I just want to mention that in this region we also have women who take opium, heroin, cannabis and many drugs. And when a pregnant woman takes drugs, it also has a direct impact on the fetus or the baby who is going to be born. So as part of our health programs, we need national strategies that also look at drug prevention and treatment including for women and children and young people. And also as perinatal and prenatal clinics need to also emphasize what support we can provide to women drug users. Thank you.
Ben bitta masalaga e'tibor bermoqchiman. Ushbu mintaqada asosan xotin-qizlar iste'mol qiladigani bu o'sha demak opium, afyun bo'ladimi, gerayin yoki bo'lmasa kannabis yoki nashalarni ularning iste'moli xususan xotin-qizlar reproduktiv yoshda bo'lganliklari uchun homilador ayollarda farzandliga o'tadi va bu narsa albatta istiqbolda juda ham yomon oqibatlarga olib keladi. Shu sababdan ham mana shu muammoni bio tarafdan hal qilish uchun ham hozirgi kundagi prenatal markazlar bor. Ya'ni homiladorlik davrini kuzatib boruvchi shifo tizimlari yo'lga qo'yilgan. Ana shu yondashuvdan ham xotin-qizlarga biz kerakli xizmatlarni ta'minlab berishimiz kerak bo'ladi.
Aziz do'stlar, bugungi suhbatimiz o'z poyoniga yetyapti. Aynan bugungi sana bilan bog'liq bo'lgan umumjahon giyohvandlikka qarshi kurash kuni munosabati bilan mehmonlarimiz taklif etganmiz. Avvalo Ashita Mittal xonimga tashakkur bildiramiz. Salomat bo'lsinlar, omon bo'lsinlar. 35 yildan ziyod mana shu sohani qamrab olib kelayotgan ekanlar. Yonlarida Baxtiyor aka Yoqubov bizga tushuntirish beryaptilar. Arifa Fatihovaga rahmat, kommunikatsiya masalalari bo'yicha mutaxassis bugun Oriyat Donoda Jarayon dasturida bo'lishdi. Yana taklif etamiz, ham suhbat bo'lamiz degan umid. Sog' bo'ling, salomat bo'ling.
Katta rahmat.
Salomat bo'ling. Xayr.
Salomat.